Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf. Online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, best in new inventory, great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee, and a fabulous service that backs all of it up with terrific technicians. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf. Online at sunburymotors.com. Anything happened in the last day or so that I should know about, or no?
Oh, my almighty!
Okay. So let's do this in 3 parts, then we'll get John Crispin on the show. Number one, Micah Shrewsberry did a terrific job in his 2 years here. Smart, brilliant coach, great concepts, and certainly came in here and did a heck of a job. He grew up in Indiana. His wife Molly grew up in Indiana. It is a lure without question, and especially with her parents living there and with his parents living there. There is that element that needs to at least be recognized. Don't get too hung up, at least in my humble opinion, about what Penn State did or didn't do. They threw a lot into what they wanted to offer him to keep him. They threw a lot into it. And so I would not be, from 30,000 feet, critical of anything Pat Kraft did or didn't do, because, to be honest with you, not everybody knows everything that they did and didn't do, but I do know that the offer was incredibly substantial. All right? Which then and so please, I think it's easy to pick out a target and blame. All right? But at the same time, right? Take my word, they threw a lot into their offer to keep him. A lot. Sometimes somebody just makes a different choice. The next part is, what do they do from here? Number one, I am not in a position, in my opinion, as the voice of the team, to then start throwing names out on the air to you, because that would not be the right thing for me to do. Do I have an opinion about individuals that should be considered, and do I have a strong opinion about which ones I think should rise to the top? Yes. But if, and I doubt they will, but if Pat Kraft wanted that opinion, I would give it to him. If Adam Miller wanted that opinion, I would give him to him. For me, on the air, it would be wrong for me to put it out there, because it would then, I think, hinder whatever process that they have. And that's not my job to do. I will say this, and I've said this many, many times, but it's worth repeating. When you have comparable candidates, and Penn State will get some really good candidates both internally and externally. They'll get great candidates internally and externally. To me, when you have comparable candidates, the one area I want to know is, and this comes from a personal point of view and a personal feeling, because of how I feel about my job. Do they feel that Penn State is the job? I know how I feel about my job. I want the people coaching it to feel the same way I do. James Franklin now is going into his 10th year. He has shown over and over again he obviously feels that this is the job. He's still here. You can talk about all the twists and turns over the last few years, but he is still here, isn't he? So I want them, whomever it is, to come in and feel that not only is Penn State a terrific job, that they feel it is the job. And whatever the process is, it's not an unlimited window on the process, because the transfer portal is alive and very active. All right? We're going to get John Crispin in a moment. America is awaiting the Macatrillo rant, which at times does skirt the gray area of insanity. But that's okay. We'll take a break. Back with more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
When car repairs get difficult.
Well, I just don't know.
Me neither.
We get good. Sunbury Motors. More than quality new and used cars, Sunbury Motors specializes in complicated auto repair diagnosis. They can handle intricate repairs and even complete auto body with service open Monday through Friday, 7 till 4. And Sunbury Motors has made simple repairs easy. Maintaining your vehicle is necessary. Finding the time to do it is difficult. Welcome to Sunbury Motors Quick Lane. Open 7 till 4, Monday through Friday. Just walk in or call ahead. Relax in their remodeled waiting room with Wi-Fi, beverages, and snacks. While Sunbury Motors factory trained techs take care of your oil change, tire alignments, brakes, and inspections. Quick Lane, 6:30 to 6, Monday through Friday, Saturday, 6:30 till 2. Sunbury Motors, Ford and Hyundai, North 4th Street, Sunbury. And Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. We take the out of auto repair.
All right, let's go to the line. We'll talk with the outstanding John Crispin from ESPN. Sir, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Hey, my pleasure, man. I'm happy to join you. What a great season. Glad you got to enjoy another good one with the boys. You know what, Steve? You know what it reminded Joe and I of? It actually reminded us for the first time, because we live with the disappointment and the fact that we did play in a Final Four. It reminded us how special it was to get to a Sweet 16, because I thought the team this year was phenomenal.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, it was interesting, the parallels. And I had texted Pat Kraft this the day after they lost to Rutgers. And I pointed out how your team on senior day, you know, it didn't go well against Ohio State, then hit the Big Ten tournament, beat Michigan State, got to the tournament, got to the Sweet 16. The parallels were amazing with an older team. Yep. And, you know, and that's, even though you were a sophomore at the time, Joe was a senior.
You know, I came in with my brother as a junior in high school. I think that was what was different.
Right.
And I was always older because I grew up playing. I mean, shoot, I was an 8th, 9th grader and back in Tiverton, New Jersey, working out with Matt Maloney and Tim Legler. Like, I learned how to play differently. I learned the maturity in the game differently. So we were a very experienced group. In a way, I almost felt like a senior with them because of how well I knew them. And I think the remarkable thing was that it's not that these guys all grew up together at Penn State. You know, they were a lot of transfers and transplants, and they figured it out, and ultimately that was the genius in it.
Yeah, I mean, no question. So the last 6 years, and I'm going to get to Micah in a moment, the last 6 years, Penn State has had 3 21 seasons. They've won an NIT, would have been in the tournament in 20, made the second round in 23. Does this tell us what Penn State basketball can be?
I mean, to a degree, yes. But I mean, is this replicable next year? Good question. Hard to tell. I think that's the challenge, and that's ultimately been the challenge for Penn State. We've shown that we can put together good teams, and yes, it could be done, but it has to be done once this job is not a stepping stone. And this is that's not a knock in any way. That's a knock in any way, anything on the history of the program. So many people, I've heard people talk about resources. Look, it's not about resources. It's about history. It's actually something Joe and I just got done having this conversation on our podcast, and you'll have to listen to it because you know how Joe is and you know where Joe stands on that job. But it's really about clarifying purpose and clarifying the reality of the challenges. And it's not about NIL. It's not about the resources in terms of the money. It's the realities surrounding the program, the lack of history, and the broken narrative that is, well, it's Penn State every now and then. They're always competitive, which means that we lose well. And I think it's one of those things where this could be or could have been in so many ways. Hopefully it could be, and not could have been, but hopefully it could be the beginning of something new that becomes more long-term. I mean, that's always been our hope for the program. I mean, our hope for the program when I was there was that this is not it. There's got to be more.
No question. Yep.
Never felt that was going to be the case. It's probably why I left. And ultimately what I learned when I left was how special Penn State really was. And I tell people all the time, to a degree, I probably appreciate Penn State more than anybody that stayed there 4, 5, or even Dan Earl 6 years. Because I left it, and I didn't have it, and I had dreams about returning, and I missed my family, I missed the community, I missed all the things that I didn't realize mattered so much. And I think if you don't get those things, then it's not really going to be a sustainable thing. I think those things are what makes the place so special.
Well, if anybody knows the history of it, I guess I would qualify as Exhibit A. So
yes, you know it.
I've been a 41-season witness.
For better or for worse. And you made it all sound positive, too.
There's an art to that. I'll get to it probably later in my career. I'll explain what the art of it is. But now they've got this. This will end up being the fourth coach in 29 months.
Yeah.
Because of all the circumstances that have played out. Without using names, what kind of person do you think can succeed here?
Well, first off, it's got to be someone that wants to make it better for the next guy and not use this as the next job to get the next job, right? And right now that's what it is, and that's the reality, because the more time you spend there with that mentality, the more you realize your limitations, and the more you lean on your limitations as a crutch to explain your struggles. We've seen that happen over the years. You know that's happened over the years, whether it's been the scheduling, the calls you get. It becomes, in a way, a crutch. And I think you can't have that if you want to build a sustainably successful program at Penn State. You can't have that if you want to change the mentality of the fan base, change the mentality of people you recruit, which in so many ways is changing the narrative. The narrative is something that is tied to the history, and it's something Joe and I talk about a lot. If you don't understand the history of the place or the program, then you'll never really make it better 10, 15, 20 years from now. So to me, this is a long-term hire. Whoever it's going to be, it's got to be a long-term hire. It's got to be someone that says, I don't really want to use this to get someplace else. I want to use this to make this program sustainable going forward. Otherwise, you do this again, and you have another, go for 2-3 years, and they have a great year, and that coach gets another job. And you're looking at 5 coaches over the last 6 years. That's not a good thing for the program. That means this is where you go to get the next job. And in no way is that a criticism of Micah Shrewsberry at all. He's a phenomenal basketball coach. I think he can coach in the NBA. I think he gets basketball. I think he gets basketball players, and he maximizes the potential of his players. And he was always an Indiana guy. This is a great opportunity. This is an ACC that he can go win in right away and be back into his Indiana roots. So in no way is it a criticism of Micah Shrewsberry. He had a great season, and he got great opportunities at a time when there were a lot of opportunities on the market. So it's not a criticism as much as it's just pointing back to, once again, the reality, and is how often do you want to go through this process, and how many times do you go through this process only to realize that you're taking 2 steps forward and 4 steps back? Because that's what ends up happening. Have we changed the identity of the program? Answer no. If outcome is tied to your identity, then you've got problems. And I think that's the thing that Joe and I talk a lot about, to say, like, hey, at some point it's got to be someone that doesn't want to leave. And you know who I keep coming back to, whether that's now or eventually.
Right, sure.
You know, I think that's where our conversations continue to come back to, because otherwise it's just going to be the next job before the next job.
Well, and that goes to the point before you came on the show. I did say, look, there will be candidates both internally and externally. I said, if I'm involved, which I'm not, the one thing I want to know among comparable candidates is which one can you read feels that this job is the job.
Well, I can tell you one. There's a guy that has 120 pages written on the vision of Penn State basketball. You know, I mean, that's the thing. It's like I don't want to advocate. Although the more we talk about it, the more I realize it's something I would probably do with him. And it's one of those things where it's not a job, it's a responsibility. And I think that's what makes it special. So if you ask someone, what do you think of this opportunity? And they say it's a great opportunity to build a program here, I would say, then you're probably not the right guy. If you don't view this job as a responsibility to make the program better for the next guy, then you're not the right person.
Right.
And the hope is that the next guy's 20 years down the road, because if you get longevity in this business, if you get longevity in the Big Ten, you win. That's just how it goes. And the real question is, Steve, something Joe and I talk about a lot with the program, because we say this about the Big Ten. We've seen the struggles in the Big Ten in the NCAA tournament. Well, the Big Ten is a simulation league, just as it's a copycat league. Joe and I just say the same thing differently. That's why we argue. I say you have to assimilate in the conference to be able to win the conference. Why are you building a team to win the conference? Why not build a team to finish 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th every single year? Have the opportunity to be different enough to make a run in the Big Ten tournament, maybe win a Big Ten tournament championship, and be different enough from your Big Ten foes to be dangerous in the NCAA tournament. That's what you should be doing. This is a Penn State basketball. This is the ultimate underdog story. And if you don't relish that limitation, you don't relish that in so many ways constraint on the game, then you're not playing into the real identity of the program, and you're not going to be able to maximize the real potential of the program. So I think that's a big part of it, is you can't just be like everybody else. You've got to be different.
4th through 7th gets you a bid.
Yes, it does.
Right.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
But it doesn't win you a Big Ten title, and that's fine.
Right.
Regular season, at least.
But 4th through 7th gets you into the tournament, where if you have a different style, which Penn State was this year, you then become a team. Okay, you then become a team that everybody sits there and go, "Oh, how do we handle this?" Because now you're on a different plateau, a different plane.
Yes. And what if Penn State's the only team in the Big Ten that full court presses? And I mean presses. Putting a press out there and pressing are two different things, and we hear that a lot. Well, we press. I'm like, oh, really? So you stand there in your zone and you back up into another zone and you call that pressing? That's not pressing. The only time I see pressing is when a team's down 15 with 5 minutes left to play.
Texas A&M presses, and all they do is so that you have 22 in the shot clock when you cross half court.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a press. That's just taking time off the clock.
No, you press to make people uncomfortable. You press to make the rhythm of the game the way you want it. You press to make the pace of the game you want it. You press so that you force a team to take quicker shots in transition that they're not comfortable with. And then you get the game played the way you want it. Look, revolutionary war tactics. I say this all the time. Joe and I are big on this. You look at Purdue. There's a reason why they lost. They're the Redcoats. And FDU didn't meet them on the battlefield. They meet them at the pass with far less and far smaller. And they take a little bit out. And they make you question what you're even doing. And then they blow up a bridge, and then you question even further what we're doing. Like, is this really going to allow us to win? You saw that on the faces of Purdue. Why was that? Why would that not work in the Big Ten enough to be an NCAA tournament team nearly every single year? I think it does. But here's the thing, Steve. If you're making $3 million a year, it doesn't work because your focus is on keeping your job. Yeah. But if you're focused on building this thing for the long haul and say, look, you're going to love our identity. You're going to love how we lose as much as you love how we win. that's something that's sustainable. And I think that's where you really got to take a different look at this point. Look, if Micah Shrewsberry stayed here for 10 years, maybe it's different, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's different where you're going, all right, we're inheriting a program in a great place. Is it really in a great place right now, or did they finish the season well? They finished the season well. The coach is gone, who was a great coach. It's not that it's in a better place. Perception-wise, from a recency bias, yes, it is. But how do you capitalize on that when the coach is gone? I think that's the thing. It's in a way, it's really back to the drawing board, and it better be a long-term plan.
Well, just very quickly, one final comment. I mean, I know you'd have to go back to take a look at it, but John Wooden ran a 2-2-1 press. That's a long time ago.
Yep.
but he did, and they used it to score. Okay. John, always a pleasure. Appreciate your time very much, my friend.
Headed over to MSG. Got Michigan State and Kansas State tonight. Should be fun.
You got Westwood tonight. I'll tell you, Kansas State, Jerome Tame came in, had two guys left, and all of a sudden he's got Noel, he's got Keontae Johnson, he's got a heck of a team.
He's got dudes.
He's got dudes. He used the portal. He got dudes. He got smart dudes too.
Yep.
Hey.
Yep. Should be fun. Should be a good night.
Should be great. Thanks, John.
Hey, my pleasure, Steve. Anytime.
You bet. John Crispin joining us on the show today. All right. We'll take a break. I'm getting overrun here with texts and emails. Okay, I know you're talking about some important stuff, but where's Matt's rant? Yeah.
Oh, it's coming.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if a lot of people are going to like what I have to say today, but we'll see.
By the way, just quick note, Reese Hoskins had to be carted off the field.
That looked really, really bad.
Okay, and he was fielding a ground ball, and I guess that's where he got hurt. That didn't look good.
He was kind of backpedaling, sort of, to get the ground ball. The whole thing just looked awkward to start, and then he took a hop, fell hard on the knee, kind of went back, and yeah, they didn't look good.
All right, news next here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf. Online, sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory. Great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. And a fabulous service department that really takes care of everything for the life of the vehicle. It's all at Sunbury Motors. 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Well, time to unleash the fury.
Well,
over here at the Bitterness Cafe, where even the waiters and waitresses show up with a little attitude.
Well, I'm keeping it with the topic of du jour today. And first of all, let's start with all the unnecessary blame that's going around. I'll tell you why it's going around. Because people are hurt. Because everyone enjoyed the run that Penn State went on, and now they're kind of lashing out at the easy target, which is Patrick Kraft, saying this is a loss, whatever. Wake up, people. This has nothing to do with Patrick Kraft losing out. This is a guy that simply just wanted to go back home. That's all it is. I concur with what you said.
Yeah, I mean, you got a great contract to do it. Now, the financial numbers, I think, were pretty close. I mean, really, but at the end, there was a lure of going home.
Exactly.
I mean, let me put it this way: people don't realize that years ago, Micah's dad, Bill, who's a terrific guy, was the deputy mayor of Indianapolis.
Correct.
And he gave the award to a young guy by the name of Jack Swarbrick.
The current Notre Dame AD.
Yeah. I mean, so there are links that go way back in this that a lot of people may not realize, but
yes.
we'll leave it at that.
There's that as well. And I've seen some reports that maybe he can use that as another stepping stone to maybe get back to Purdue, or whatever the case may be. But regardless, that's why he left. Patrick Kraft did everything he could. And if people think that he's just going to be another stepping stone of an AD, you have not been paying attention one iota since he took over July 1st with this program. This guy is passionate, and he's made some culture changes already that has already brought in a lot of improvement to Penn State athletics. I mean, just look at football, for example. Even look at this season with basketball to some degree and all the other sports that have done well this year. Patrick Kraft is going to be a fine AD. He will be fine, and I don't want to even hear any of that. If you're just hearing that, you're just talking nonsense, just trying to spruce out at and lash out at the situation of losing a great guy in Micah Shrewsberry. That's just borderline ridiculous of having that about Patrick Kraft. All right, so that's number one thing. But here's the one thing about Micah Shrewsberry himself leaving Penn State, in my opinion, is I think he's making a mistake by leaving. I get you want to go home. I get there's the lure there, and there's all like the intrigue of going home, this and that. It's Notre Dame. I get it. I'm a Notre Dame football fan. I get it. But what John Crispin said to begin his interview with you, Steve, just now, all but confirmed my thoughts on this. You want a guy that is longevity. And you've said this too, Steve. You want a guy that fully is invested in Penn State. Look at a guy like James Franklin now getting ready for his 10th season. That's what this Penn State program needs, and Micah Shrewsberry, especially after this season, had a chance to do that. He had a chance. He's only going to be remembered for this turnaround this season of bringing Penn State back to the tournament since 2011. He will have that, but he had a chance for so much more. He had a chance for this to be the place to be and not a stepping stone. He had a chance to make that kind of history here, and he left. Could he do that in other places? Sure. But he could have done that right here in Penn State and could have possibly changed the landscape of how Penn State is viewed in Big Ten basketball. And because of the style of play, maybe change the way Big Ten basketball is played. You guys were just talking about back and forth how that is right now, how maybe it's better to be 4 through 7 so you can make a run in the NCAA tournament instead of being the Big Ten champ. Well, maybe if Micah Shrewsberry stays, that landscape changes too. Who knows? All I'm saying is Micah Shrewsberry can choose whatever he wants to do. If he wants to go home and go to Notre Dame, that's fine. I'm saying I think he has a major missed opportunity to change Penn State basketball. That's all.
Well, one thing that has to change with Penn State basketball moving forward is going to be making sure there is a commitment to name, image, and likeness. And that is something that is really important. They're going through the recruiting process, trying to get guys locked up last summer, and because really it's the first time, the first recruiting class across the board for everything, football, basketball, anything, wrestling, where name, image, and likeness is a factor. I mean, this is the first real recruiting class this past year where name, image, and likeness is a factor. It's going to be a factor moving forward for whomever gets this job. It's going to be a factor moving forward in wrestling. It's going to be a factor moving forward in football until there is some sort of unified dome that is put over the name, image, and likeness rules across the country, because right now you're existing with 50 state models. Now, 30 or whatever of them are about the same, but there are others that have subtle differences in them. But there's nothing unified in it, and there are no limits to it at all. It is unlimited. And I'm talking about obviously the like with success, with honor, and so forth, what they could do, the collectives. All right? And this is something that whomever is the next coach at Penn State, they're going to have it. And for those who are longtime fans of college athletics, there is a segment of the longtime fan base, and I do understand completely where they're coming from, that are not comfortable with this. To them, it is not college athletics. To them, college athletics is I get a scholarship, I stay for my 4 or possibly 5 years, and Penn State or whatever the school means everything to me, and you as fans mean everything to me, and that's the way it should be. I thoroughly, completely understand that mindset. So I'm not being critical of anybody that feels that way, because that's the way it's been for such a long time, and I understand it. The unfortunate part is that is not the landscape of today. And there will be, I think, within 5 years, some sort of guidelines around name, image, and likeness, just like I think within 5 years there'll be better guidelines around the transfer portal, which you're starting to see, by the way, now. You're starting to see some guidelines in the transfer portal, right? But name, image, and likeness is something that, right, it's taking a lot of getting used to for people. This is one of those, you either adapt or you lose. You either adapt or you lose. And and what's going to happen is, if you have a coach who doesn't have a strong name, image, and likeness collective behind him, is going to get the blame. I don't understand why he can't recruit. I don't understand why he can't bring people in. I don't understand, why we're falling behind X, Y, and Z. Well, there's a reason why you're falling around X, Y, and Z. Unfortunately, you need people to then conform to what the new rules are across the board. Now, it's your choice as to whether you want to, conform and get involved. That's your choice. But if you're going to start blaming people for not bringing in the right recruits, not bringing in enough recruits, why do they got to do it this way? Why do they keep playing from behind? You can't be that person that criticizes it and doesn't get involved in it, because that is the new landscape, the current landscape of intercollegiate athletics. And Penn State in basketball last summer lost a few recruits. In part, recruits that they really had a good line on, because the name, image, and likeness structure was not good enough here. Right? And that's for men's basketball. And that is something that in the new world of intercollegiate athletics we're in, you either adapt or you lose. And if you're not adapting and then people are complaining about you're losing, you got to look at everybody and go, well, we need your help to adapt. And that's an important factor in all this. I'm not, and I have no idea, zero, because I know today, somebody told me on the Today Show, the Notre Dame hierarchy was talking about how they need better guidance on name, image, and likeness, because they don't think it's the right way to go overall. But if you want to have a top 30, top 40 class in the country, you want to have a top 15 class, whatever, as hard a topic as it is, and name, image, and likeness is a difficult topic, especially for long-time college sports fans, and I totally understand it. Why can't they just be happy having a scholarship? I understand that argument, but it is an unrealistic argument if you want to win now. And that's the issue that you have here. It's not a realistic argument under the current rules of intercollegiate athletics. And if the program means something to you, whatever it may be, whether it's wrestling, football, basketball, whatever the program happens to be, if said program means enough to you, right, and you've been willing to donate to the Nittany Lion Club, or you've been willing to donate with an endowment, this is, in the current landscape, where the attention is needed. Right? And it's just what the current landscape is. So, and that's something that, that's something that, it means a lot. And they had some chances at some guys this summer, and they couldn't quite finish it, in part because of NIL. And this is, again, you're looking at the current recruiting class in football, the one that came in December, and the one in the early signing period in basketball. Those were the first signing classes where NIL really was a factor. The first ones. So the question is, moving forward, what else can you get? How else can you do it? And whether people like it or not, take for example, Penn State lost a guy to Illinois, okay? And Illinois, to its credit, in basketball, is one of the better ones when it comes to name, image, and likeness. It's to their credit. Now, do Penn State have to be Illinois? No, but you have to make sure you have something. And that is part of the formula. So, when we're talking about whomever the new basketball coach is going to have that, has to have that same kind of backing that you're really starting to see a ramp up in football about. It's going to have the same kind of backing. So it's just the way of the new world. All right. We'll take a break. There is a coaches show tonight. We'll talk a little bit about the blue-white game, a little bit about Penn State hockey. Yes, we'll have the women's tennis coach on, and yes, Dick Girardi and I will be on to talk basketball for a segment as well. I can tell you are not finished with your rant.
I do have a part 3 to my rant when it comes to this topic, yes.
Part 3?
Yes.
My goodness. I feel awful that I hijacked it.
No, it's all good. This is all part of what's making a good conversation. It's all good.
Okay. All right. We'll take a break. We'll come back with more in a moment. You're on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Payoff pitch. And it's a high bouncer to first. Hoskins backs up in and out of his glove. And so Meadows will be on. And Hoskins clutching his knee.
That's not a good sign.
No, it was not. He had to be carted off the field. No initial thought as to what happened to Rhys Hoskins. But you get carted off the field, that is not a good sign. Hopefully they can get some good news on that, but there's no news about it right now. Zeke Elliott says that he might be eyeing 3 teams, the Bengals, the Jets, and the Eagles. Suddenly, out of nowhere, you'll be a fan.
It would be a very interesting dynamic of me actually rooting for Zeke Elliott, because I really cannot stand the guy. But from a football standpoint, I can see him actually being a fit.
Suddenly starting to couch it, are we? Yes, amazing. Forbes says the most valuable team in Major League Baseball is
the New York Yankees.
$7.1 billion is the established number for the Yankees. That's an 18% increase over last year. The Dodgers are second and way behind at 4.8, up 18%. The Red Sox are third at $4.5 billion, up 15%. The Cubs are at $4.1 billion, up 8%. And the San Francisco Giants, according to Forbes, at $3.7 billion, up 6%. Overall, the Major League Baseball team value increased an average of 12% over last year to $2.32 billion. The Yankees made $143 million in cable money in 2022 with their games televised on YES, the most profitable and most watched regional sports network in the country. In total, Major League Baseball's 30 teams made about $2.3 billion in local TV revenue in 2022, accounting for 22% of their total revenue before debt service. The NHL made $838 million in local TV, up 14%. The NBA $1.31 billion, up 13%.